From Studio 401, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on The Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt, and here's our headlines. A man has been blinded by a parasite after showering with his contacts in. A keen sportsman who got contact lenses to improve his sight while playing soccer was told how he was blinded after wearing them in the shower when a parasite started living in his right eye. During the 18 months of horror, Nick Humphreys, 29, has had 2 operations on his eye and is now waiting for a corneal transplant after contracting a rare parasitical infection in his right cornea. Had I known how dangerous it was to wear contacts in the shower, I would have never gotten them in the first place, Humphreys said. After getting the infection, I went from hitting the gym every other day and playing soccer 3 times a week to being housebound for 6 months and losing the will to live. I got contacts as I didn't like how I looked in glasses, and it nearly cost me my right eye. Source, FoxNews.com. And it was raining catfish at Mumbai's Juhu Airport in India. While some would say that it's raining cats and dogs in the city of Mumbai, those who visited the Juhu Airport in the last couple of days would beg to differ. The tarmac of the country's busiest heliport was taken over by aquatic animals for a brief period last Saturday. The sight of catfish raining from the sky was there for all to see, right out of Leif Parsons' fictional novel, Only Fish Fall from the Sky. Source, Times Now News. And a man narrowly avoids being buried alive. A man in India who was thought to have died following an accident turned out to be very much alive. 20-year-old Mohammed Furqan was rushed to the hospital back on June 21st and was later declared dead after doctors reported that they had been unable to save his life. Not long afterwards, however, just as Furqan was about to be buried at his funeral, some of the mourners noticed to their surprise that his body appeared to be moving. Devastated, we were preparing for the burial when some of us saw movement in his limbs, according to his brother. We immediately took him to the hospital. That's where doctors said he was alive and was put on a ventilator support system. It later transpired that doctors at the private hospital had originally declared him deceased after the family had run out of money to pay for treatment. Source, Unexplained Mysteries. And now time for this edition's interesting fun fact. Jack Daniel, yes, the founder of the whiskey, died from kicking a safe. When he kicked it, he broke his toe, which got infected, and he eventually died from blood poisoning. Thanks for listening to the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. Again, I'm Vance Nesbitt, news anchor and sorcerer.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift.
Contact, nice to be in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack in a hill in the Mossy Creek, bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Root, live here on the Fringe FM. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is Monday night, July the 15th, on into the 16th, and tonight we're going to be speaking with author, speaker, and Monroe Institute instructor Paul Elder, a look into his background as well as to his near-death experiences, the out-of-body experience, and remote viewing. This show is brought to you by GetTheT.com. I saw a lot of you folks that listened to this show at the webinar today. Thank you guys so much for coming out. It was really fun. And there is one hell of a deal on the website. I'll tell you all about it. But you need to go check out the front page. It's a steal right now, so go check it out. Also, the show is brought to you by GetTheT.com, AncientLifeOil.com, the best CBD on the planet, and PrepareWithTheFringe.com. I want to give a shout out to the June supporters who have donated to the show in June. I promised this last week, but I got caught up in the conversation with Jeff so much, so I forgot to do it. So here we go. For all of you supporters in June: Barbara, Vive, Amalia, Satya, Amanda, Blake, Joseph, Craig, Eric, Larry, Patrick, Lynn, Lenka, Adrian, Suzanne, Joe, Daniel, David, JD, Alan, Curtis, Debbie, Travis, Stephen, and Janice. Thank you guys so much. You can support the show by donating if you go to lightingthevoid.com. There's a donate button there, as well as the Fringe FM shop at the Amazon portal. Buy anything from our shop, which we don't make hardly but a couple bucks from, but it's like free advertising, and you get cool gear, cool swag. It's at the shop at lightingthevoid.com. It's also our first premiere broadcast straight just into the network. So if you go to the TalkStream Live's Paranormal Radio app, there is a Lighting the Void. There's not just a Fringe FM thing there, but there's a Lighting the Void tab as well that's got my logo there, and that's the AAC encoder, which is a little bit more high quality, as well as the pop-out players on the website. If you've had a UFO sighting you'd like to report and you live out in the West, give UFO Seekers a call at 661-UFO-7889. Backed and supported by the Fringe FM. Check out their website, ufoseekers.com, and their YouTube channel, youtube.com/UFO Seekers. Tomorrow night, we're going to be speaking with Robert Wagner. We're going to look into the fascinating realm of lucid dreaming. Wednesday night, Howard Storm will be with us. Thursday night, another good one for UFOs is Rob Shelsky will be with us. And Friday nights, it's open lines again right here on Lighting the Void. Remember, this show airs 9 p.m. to midnight Pacific, Monday through Friday, right here at thefringe.fm. Now, most of you know that I brought up the Monroe Institute. I bring it up quite a bit, Robert Monroe, and there's a reason for that because of my own experiences with it. But also most of you know about the Project Stargate. Now, Project Stargate was the 1991 event, codename for the secret U.S. Army unit established in 1978 at Fort Meade, but it was codenamed in 91 now at Fort Meade, Maryland, by the Defense Intelligence Agency and the SRI. But it was really all about looking into psychic phenomena in the military and domestic intelligence applications. Third Eye Spies was a great documentary about that. And what we know now is this stuff is real. We should be well beyond the fact that this stuff is real and start to look into the implications and start training ourselves on how to do this. And I believe that's why we are speaking with Paul Elder tonight. Now, Paul Elder has spent a lifetime studying human nature from a unique perspective. He's a survivor of 5 near-death experiences. Along with the trauma and subsequent beauty of death came a series of spontaneous spiritual events that would turn his belief system upside down, leaving him with profound insights as to our true nature and purpose in the universe. He's also author of the acclaimed book, Eyes of an Angel, and he's a former network television news announcer and a long-term mayor of a Canadian city. And after spending nearly a decade in broadcasting, Paul ventured into a career of politics and business spanning more than 20 years. Forever grateful for his near-death encounters, his spiritual insights helped to mold and deeply influence his approach to politics, business, and life. But due in part to his many extraordinary excursions while participating in consciousness exploration programs at the world-renowned Monroe Institute in Virginia, he was introduced to some mysterious people involved in paranormal research, some at high levels of security within the U.S. government's top secret military intelligence psychic spying program known as Project Stargate. And as a result of these connections, he subsequently trained with several of the original Army intelligence remote viewing officers employed in the previously top secret unit. Now, Paul specializes in remote viewing, and he has been a Monroe Institute residential trainer since 2002. In addition to his training duties at the Institute in Virginia, he also operates as a West Coast facility on Vancouver Island, Canada, offering a full 60-day residential program. Paul, thank you so much for coming on Lighting the Void. It's a real honor to have you on the program tonight.
You're very welcome, Joe. Thank you.
This is the one thing that I cannot help but talk about. I can't help but look into because of the implications. But before we get into that, could you tell us a little bit about your near-death experiences? Which one happened first, and how did all this come about?
Well, after several of the near-death experiences, I just can't seem to get it right. So the first one, the first experience that I had, and this completely blew my mind. I was only 12 years old, and I drowned. Was under the water for about 6 or 7 minutes, and had this amazing experience. But when you're 12 and weird stuff happens, you go, well, that was weird, and you go on with life. And I really didn't know, even though it was a tremendously spiritual kind of experience, I was actually flying and, out of my body. And, but I had no idea until many, many years later just how that had actually affected me. There's probably one thing that people ask and say, well, gee, why do you think you've had so darn many near-death experiences? And I think, I think maybe the problem is if you show a 12-year-old prairie boy that there's no such thing as death, that you don't really die, that's maybe inviting problems. And so I've kind of seemed to live life on the edge. And so when I was 17, I got in a car accident and was smashed up really bad and unconscious, and lost a kidney and had broken ribs and a few other things, and had a smaller kind of near-death experience in which a luminous being showed up and kept me warm while I was literally laying in the field in Saskatchewan in probably 21 below or 20 below zero for some time, and this being kept me warm and caused me to wake up at some point, and to see the only car that was probably going to come by that night coming down this old grid road highway. And even though I was smashed up, I managed somehow to crawl out onto the edge of the highway just in time to get there and flag down the car. And other than that, a number of years passed. Again, I got involved, and done a whole bunch of things. I was a rock and roll disc jockey back in the 70s when rock was rock, and got into news broadcasting and television, and worked for CTV Network for the last year or two. And so spent about 10 years in broadcasting, and then moved on into business and into politics, if you will. And politicians drove me crazy. And so that was the only reason I thought the world could maybe use a spiritual politician or two. And so that's sort of what drove me. But it was probably the event that really sort of got my attention was when I was about 41, and I was playing an old-timers hockey game and had a heart attack in the middle of the hockey game and literally died on the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And had this amazing experience of floating out of my body and saying goodbye to my wife and kids, and finding myself floating at the ceiling of the ambulance saying goodbye to myself. And it was such an odd experience. And I suddenly felt this, pull, and it drew me right through the ceiling of the ambulance. And it was the strangest thing because I could feel like the cloth interior and the inside and the insulation and then the metal as I passed through it. And it was so bizarre. And I floated above the ambulance, not knowing exactly what to do, or flying along with it, I should say, as it's, screeching off to the hospital. And there appeared, I felt drawn in a certain direction, and everything closed in on me. And I felt this speck of light somewhere in the distance, and I was just drawn to it. And I was moving faster and faster and heading towards this light. And for me, it was so amazing. There was nothing that I wanted more. And it reminds me of if you saw the movie E.T., when, E.T. is laying there all sick and the spaceship shows up and his heart lights up and he goes, home, home, home. And that's what I felt like. I was going home, and I was rushing through the universe or wherever it was towards this light. And all of a sudden there's this huge explosion. And boom, I'm back in my body in the emergency room in the hospital. And some really bad words formed in my mind because I was going home. And all of a sudden they changed everything. And I was back in my body and back to the pain and everything else that went with it. And that opened the doorway. After that, by the time, everything, got sort of flushed through, if you will, in the hospital, it took about an hour and a half for the seizure or the heart seizures to quit, the blockages. And it damaged about 25% of my heart muscle. And but you can live with that, and you grow, tissue around it. Around the scars and scar tissue and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. But after that, I began to have spontaneous out-of-body experiences. And I'd heard about, it was kind of weird because about 10 years prior to that, I was watching a television interview with a guy named Robert Monroe. And he was talking about this book that he had out, and it was called Journeys Out of the Body. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I actually borrowed it from the library and read it from cover to cover. And I took it back to the library and thought, well, that's interesting, but this guy's a nut job, and forgot all about it. 10 years later, or 11 years, if you will, I'm floating at the ceiling of my bedroom, looking down at myself and my wife in bed, and one of the first things that came to my mind was, oh my God, Trudeau wasn't crazy, or Trudeau, Monroe wasn't crazy.
Wow. So,
and
do you think
so basic? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, do you think it was none of that? You never had any types of experiences like this, and before the near-death experiences, or anything that would even resemble what's happening to you at this point, right? Right.
Well, when I was, having said that, when I was 14, I had an interesting experience. This is about 2 years after the near-death experience. And I was walking past, to put it into perspective, we were, my little brother and I, we were kind of forced to be altar boys, in this Catholic church that we, belonged to out in the country in the middle of nowhere. And we had in the yard, during the church services, on Sunday, we would hear this gobbling and stuff like that. There was a couple of wild turkeys that were in the yard. And so on a particular Saturday, I'm heading home, and I happened to walk past this church yard. And there was a row of trees that were probably 80 feet high. And there was a big nest in one of the trees way up top. And I didn't know turkeys couldn't fly. So I thought, I'm going to crawl up that tree and see if the turkeys are in there or if they got baby turkeys or whatever. And so I crawled up this, tree, and I'm very close to the top. And so probably, 70, 80 feet up in the air. And I'm standing on a branch, and I got my hands on the branch that is holding up this huge nest. And now it was probably an eagle's nest or something like that. And I'm standing there on my tiptoes on the branch below it with my hands on the branch, below the nest. And I can't see into it. And so I'm pulling a little bit, and I'm worried that a turkey's going to reach out and peck me in the face, but I might see some baby turkeys or something like that. And as I'm pulling on the branch and trying to lift myself up, suddenly the branch that I was standing on broke. And in an instant, I went falling through the tree, and the first thing that happened is I smacked into a large branch below it, which obviously probably knocked me unconscious. And the next thing I know, I'm floating in this tree, watching myself fall through the tree, hitting branches on the way down, until I finally flipped around and landed right on my back on the ground and unconscious. And I'm floating in the tree and I'm saying to myself, get up. It was just the most bizarre thing. And then suddenly I had this big breath and I'm laying on the ground with the wind knocked out of me, looking up into the tree going, oh my God, what on earth just happened? How is that possible? So that was one of the few episodes or things that kind of led me to this even more inexorably to this notion that we don't die, that, we continue on. And as I mentioned, that's probably not a good thing for a 14-year-old to know, because then you challenge everything.
Did your family at any point in time, did you talk to your family or friends about any of this stuff? What were their thoughts on it? Or did you even bring it up to them when this was happening?
Yes. Excuse me. It was one of the most amazing things that had ever happened to me. And after the drowning, I found that I could see things in my mind, but I didn't attach it to anything. I didn't, it was just, from as far as I knew, it was just a strange quirk. I'm 12, 13, 14 years old. And I came from a large family, and it's sort of redundant to say large Catholic family, but I was the 10th out of 11 kids. My mom had 8 girls in a row and then figured out what was happening and changed the dial, and she had 3 boys. And I was the 10th out of 11. And one of the things that happened after this drowning when I was 12, it was like I could see things in my mind. I just had a sense or knew where things were. So if somebody lost something, I could often find it quite easily. And I had 8 sisters, and they all got Mick and vouch for this. They all, understood that, and they would be like, well, ask Paul.
Well, if somebody lost some money or their car keys, you kind of knew where they were?
Yeah, or just about anything. And so that was, sort of a common thing. They would say, well, ask Paul, which of course sometimes led them to believe I was the one who took it. And, and sometimes I did, because that's how you build your own legend, Hey, I know where it is. Right.
Well, Robert Monroe talked about that in his book, where he would find change in his pockets, or I think he had an out-of-body experience where he saw money under a piece of plywood, and he went outside and lifted it up, and there it was. Just very bizarre stuff. I'm probably butchering that a little bit, but was it kind of like that?
Well, it was like, it wasn't like I was going out of body to see this. It was just that I sort of knew, living out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this is, we're talking, in the 50s and 60s before, basically before television and so on and so forth. And so I sort of knew things, but I didn't really attach anything to it. I didn't realize that maybe that was a remnant of the near-death experience, the drowning, or the falling out of the tree thing, until many, many years later. And after the heart attack in the ambulance, and by then I was in politics and I was the mayor of a city, and had this experience and of dying, and then suddenly being out of body spontaneously, and the first thing I did is I headed back to the library, and I borrowed everything and bought every book I could. And I found out that Bob Monroe had a second book called Far Journeys. And in that book, I discovered that he had actually created this center in Virginia in which ordinary people from around the world could go and learn about themselves. And they had produced or developed this patented processing called hemispheric synchronization, or hemisync. And it was a product of sound through stereo headphones that could legitimately, and was proven in independent labs, that it could alter consciousness. Right. And move people into what they call mind awake and body asleep. And so I was just fascinated by this, and I thought, my God, I wanted to do this again. And I'd have 2 or 3 spontaneous out of body experiences, but I could not make it happen. In fact, I tried for almost 3 months, practically every night. It'd be like 8:30, and I'd be laying in bed, trying to make myself go out of body. And
I think a lot of people can relate to that, Paul. I know my audience can. We talk about this so much. Hey, let's try to do it. Let's try to do this tonight. Let's try to get out of body, or let's try to meet up. And it seems difficult. It seems like this is not something that you're going to learn overnight if you're going to try to attempt it all the time, I don't think.
Right. Well, I tried for 3 months. And here's the deal, though. You can't make yourself go out of body. All right. Well, you can, but you step in front of a bus, right? And so I literally for 3 months. I mean, my kids were like, "Mom, what's Dad doing in bed at 8:30?" And they just thought it was really strange. And I tried, and that was the point that I'm trying to make. Is when you're trying, your consciousness is way up high somewhere, because you're trying to make something happen. When all you need to do is completely relax and let go of the trying. And so after about 3 months of practicing and trying and begging and doing everything I could to try and make this happen, at some point I drifted away and gave up on it. And suddenly the vibrations were there, and I was going to go out of body, and I freaked out. It felt like there was someone in my room. And I shook my head and shook myself awake and out of this condition. And immediately I was like, "No, 3 months, you idiot." And it was, and I thought, I promised I'll never do that again. I chickened out. And I felt that there was somebody else or something in the room. I didn't know what. And I found out later on that it was my spirit guide that encouraged me, saying, "Come on, come on, come on." But I had to get out of the way. And that's what we find at the Institute in Virginia, is that when you get out of the way, when you stop trying to make something happen and just let go, that's when it can happen. Wow. Yeah. That's very good advice. And this is exactly some of the stuff I want to talk about is the mechanics and how to, and I know it's so hard to explain how to do some of these things, but you're a teacher. You speak about these things. I've tried to talk to so many people about it because I know for a fact that I've had one experience, Paul, and I've heard you mention this before on previous interviews where you just know. Some people will question, "Oh, well, was I out of body or not?" I think when you really get out of body, like I think there's those times that there's no doubt, Right. Well, what I've discovered over, how many years, 25, 30 years of doing this, there can be varying degrees of it, as a remote viewer, sometimes depending on the importance of the targeting or the importance of the case we're working on, I might have what we call a bilocation, in which is like an out-of-body experience. So, suddenly my consciousness is wherever it needs to be. And then you can pretty much take it to the bank. But there are also what we found at the Institute in Virginia and, numerous other ways and places, there's varying degrees. So sometimes an out-of-body experience can be pretty vague and dreamlike. And so it'd be like, what, did that really happen? Was that a dream or what was that? And then we're able to find out and prove that a certain thing did happen at a certain time when this person had this certain dream, right? And so we could actually relate that and say, well, hey, was that an out-of-body experience? As I mentioned, there are varying degrees of it, though. Sometimes, and it's like the near-death experiences, and people will say this, and I've had, numerous interviews about near-death experiences and things like that, and even some of my, old cohorts in CTV News in Canada and so on and so forth, kind of looking at me like, hey, you were a politician and you were a network announcer, and then you did this. What's wrong with you? Right. And it was sort of like, and they would say things like, how do you know that this was real? There you go. How do you know you weren't dreaming.
That's the question. And I tell you what, we're up against the break, and I want to get to just that question right when we come back. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. Tonight we're here with Paul Elder, author, Monroe Institute instructor. We'll be right back.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Roop, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Alex X. Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, The Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm, call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old china plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your northern self and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you beat a Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
So, have you heard of heavy metals? I'm not talking about the heavy metals in the junkyard. I'm talking about the heavy metals that build up in your body. Heavy metals in your body can make you feel sluggish, fatigued, and just plain off. Why not try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? Cleansing your body and making you feel great. No, not cleansing the outside of your body, but cleansing the inside of your body of intruders that sneak their way into you and set up an intruder camp. Life Change Tea helps remove unwanted intruder camps. Brew it, steep it, and drink in the results. Tastes great, so you can create a new health habit. Our tea loves to help people. It just needs the chance. So order yours today by logging on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our Life Change Super Strength Tea is waiting. This could be a beautiful relationship. Take charge of your health. Order at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
And welcome back. You are listening to Lighting the Void with your host, Joseph Roop.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. That's my brother Michael Deacon on the mic there with the voice drop from End of Days. Tonight we're speaking with author, speaker, and instructor Paul Elder. You can visit his website at paul-elder.com. They also have a link that I've dropped in the chat room, and I'll also drop in for the archive version, where he has a page at the Monroe Institute. And before the break, you were discussing about how do we teach this stuff? How do we learn how to do this? And you had mentioned that the more you try to have an out-of-body experience or try to do these things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the more you try to do these things, it's like the less it happens. You've got to learn to let go. Is that what you said?
Pretty much that's it. What we found over the years, and I've been doing this for a long time, is that sort of when you get to the point where you let go, and people, and over the years, there's been like 30 or 40,000 people that have come to the Institute in Virginia from all over the world, because they read the books and they heard the stories and things like that. And it's life changing. There's not a question. When I went there the first time, I wanted to be able to do this. I was having occasionally, and I had 2 or 3 spontaneous out-of-body experiences, and discovered that Monroe had started a facility in Virginia in which people from, ordinary people from all over the world could go to and spend 6 days in this full immersion kind of a workshop and listening to what he called hemisync and getting into these altered states of consciousness, which this, the process, really facilitated. And so I went there, and for the first 2.5 days, excuse me, and we did about, probably 4 or 5 of these sessions per day, listening to the special hemisync frequencies on stereo headphones. And on the morning of the 3rd day or whatever, and I fell asleep just about every one. And on the morning of the 3rd day, I'm lying, doing a session in bed with my headphones on, and I'm thinking, why am I so stiff? And then I realized that I'm laying there, and the only thing touching the bed is the back of my head and the heels of my feet, because I'm trying to make myself go up in the air. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And this doesn't work. And I wasted a whole bunch of time and money. And so I'm just going to go to sleep. And I just let go. And I clicked out, if you will, and for a few moments. And the next thing I know, I find myself floating up into the ceiling. And I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And so, I discovered, and it's not like the trainers weren't telling us, no, you have to, you cannot make this happen. In fact, the harder you try, the more impossible it becomes, because your consciousness, is way up in beta range when you got to be down in theta range, completely relaxed and let go. When that rapid eye movement facility starts in your brain waves, and your brain waves are running between 8 and 10 cycles per second, that's the juicy spot. That's when things happen. And so when I finally discovered this, that the only way this can happen is to simply let go. And so many other people have found it as well, and really is life-changing.
Yeah, see, I've had one experience with that, and I've said it so many times on the show where I was trying to do what William Buellman and Robert Monroe both talked about, and I sat up on the couch, and as soon as I I waited till I got to that vibratory state, and I even relaxed and waited for another 20 seconds, and then I kind of pushed my elbows down to sit up, and as soon as I felt my elbows hit the couch, I was like, well, that didn't work. We'll try again later. But when I stood up and turned around, I saw myself sleeping, and there was really no difference other than things seemed more real, and I could walk through stuff, and I could fly. That was the difference, right? Everything else was the same.
Totally cool. And usually that, is what happens is it sneaks up on you. And that's happened to me a number of times, where even, unfortunately, a couple of times when I had to go to the washroom. or the bathroom. And so I get up and I'm really, really tired, and I turn around. Geez, there's someone behind me, and it's me, And so that's like instantly back in my body, But that's what happens for most folks. It sneaks up on you, and you turn around and go, oh my God. Or you find yourself at the ceiling, and it's, we all have this notion, from Bob's books and various other books about the classic kind of vibrational lift out, and that is all possible, but it's really hard to make happen that way. What happens is, what usually happens is it sneaks up on you. So you set your intent and just let go. And, and it takes some practice, there's no question about it, but the results are life-changing.
Yeah, that's so right. Because when it happened to me, that was my feelings. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing. It's real. It's real. It's real. Like, this is real. This is not the dream. This is it. I was so happy. And I think that kind of, when you get real happy, I think that kind of pushes you back to your body a little bit. I don't know. But it didn't last long.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is you see yourself, and the excitement is so big that it just jolts you back into your body.
Yeah.
But
right.
you got to have the experience, and that always stays with you, and it really is something that, once you've opened the door that you can't close, that drive or desire is there for a long, long time. But, I'd encourage you, if you get a chance, head off to to Virginia, or head off to the Monroe Institute.
I would love to do that. In fact, a few of my listeners, we've all talked about it a few times, about maybe saving up some money and going up there for a few days and going through some of the things. I mean, I would just love to go up there.
Yeah, huge fun.
There's something very calming about Robert Monroe, his voice and his energy at that place. In fact, some nights I'll just listen to his voice just to calm me down, to get me back into the groove. But I wanted to talk to you about, I guess, semantics. A lot of people get into the semantics of, is it a dream? Is it an astral projection? Is it an ethereal projection, which I've heard others in the esoteric and occult world call it an etherical projection. And to me, and this is just to me, the etherical projection is more accurate when it comes to what I described earlier, which was like no other. But I also had another gentleman, Gordon White, say, like you said earlier, that it's all kind of in the same realm. But if you think about a slider on a radio or on a mixer, you kind of turn it up and turn it down the way you want. Does that make sense? How do you explain it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if for people that have had, say, if you've had flying dreams when you were a kid, I truly believe that that's your brain's interpretation of an out-of-body experience. All right? And I used to have them all the time. I would find myself, flying, trying to get away from other kids that were chasing me or something like that. And, and what we're discovering, and I get to access to a lot of research, at the Institute and at other places, and, in the work that I do. And so we can examine, so many of these case studies, if you will, and, and take a look at, the actual proof that the process works and that it does happen, and how many people have had the experience where they've described something. And really, that's the only way, we attach it to it. Because, I mean, you can do amazing things. I mean, you can visit with Elvis on the other side, but you can't prove it, right? In remote viewing and other things like that, I mean, you can prove it very quickly, and so that's what we've discovered, is that people describing certain events that can be around the globe or on the other side of the country, so on and so forth, remote viewing or, in just out-of-body experiences, and find out that, yes, that did happen, exactly as they described it. And so the differences, I think, are in a person's ability to relax. And for me, if you, and a lot of people will have this experience, do you see, when you drift off to sleep at night, sometimes, do you see faces?
Sometimes.
Yeah. And usually they're in like black and white or gray shades, and a face will take shape in front of you, in front of your mind's eye, if you will, or your third eye, and then disappear, and another one takes its place, sometimes even animals, right? And what I found is that, I don't know who they are, if these spirits are just checking in on you or whatever else, but it's sort of the difference between a nighttime experience when you're drifting off to sleep and in the morning when you have had a good sleep and you wake up, go to the bathroom, crawl back into bed. That's when you have the powerful experiences. That's when they can be full color, vibratory, experiences, as opposed to like sort of a wispy image at night when you're all tired and falling asleep. So there can be various differences, in that way as well between, but that's depending on your condition, on whether you're relaxed, whether you're awake, or whether you've had enough sleep, that sort of thing. So we found some interesting things about consciousness itself, and to me, the whole thing is just so fascinating. I just absolutely love the possibilities.
Yeah, because there's a ton of implications. It knocks down all the boundaries. And in fact, I think our beliefs kind of get in the way sometimes. And I don't want to knock anybody's religious or spiritual beliefs, but sometimes I think they get in the way of us having the full experience that we could really have sometimes.
Well, yeah, the same here. I'm not, I don't want to, discount somebody's, religious,
Sure.
beliefs and so on and so forth. But I've never run into a being that had wings, on the other side. And, and so here's the thing, that you can't have this experience. You can't have a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience without reflecting on who you are. How is this possible? Or reflecting on what God is. Is there a God? How can this be? Right? Yeah. You can't have that experience without doing that. And the more time you spend inside yourself, inside your mind, reflecting on these experiences, the more you understand how you process thought. So there's some interesting things. When I was at the Institute in Virginia, and I had not heard anything about remote viewing or anything of that nature. I was going there because it sounded like a pretty cool place to be. I'd read Bob's books, and so I fell in love with the place and went back for guidelines and Lifeline and different programs. And I got to spend some time in the isolation chamber, if you will.
Oh, cool.
And there was this guy there whose name was Skip Atwater, and he's like a techie guy and had this little goatee, and I got to go into this isolation chamber and get hooked up, and some of the things that I experienced and some of the things that I told them about got somebody's attention. And one day I was introduced to a fellow named Dale Graff, or I met this guy named Dale Graff. And it turns out that he was the Pentagon director of this top secret program, Stargate. And I heard about this, or they told me about it, and I thought, well, this, I'm not sure that I believe them. And they thought that, whether it was because of my near-death experiences or whatever, that people that had near-death experiences seemed to have this extra aptitude for it. And so they thought that I might have some talent in it or some abilities. And so, as you mentioned earlier, I spent a fair amount of time training with some of the original Stargate personnel. And now I've never worked for Stargate. I'm a Canadian, but I've helped out, with the intelligence services, finding missing people, finding bad guys, finding,
Yeah, but you got to train with some of the people, but you didn't actually do project work, is what you're saying, right?
No, not in that sense. No, I was never worked for, for the Stargate, but I have helped out, on various projects.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched that movie, Third Eye Spies, and they were talking about Ingo Swann and these other folks, and it showed them that they threw up a picture of him sitting on the couch. But it also, no one mentioned in that movie that Robert Monroe was sitting there right beside him, and they took that picture. I think that was in a military base, and I don't remember or recall Robert Monroe talking about that too much in his books. Of course, it's been such a long time since I've read all 3 books. I usually listen to the first book once a year. The Journeys Out of the Body. Yeah.
Well, there's some, there's an interesting history there. I mean, Bob Monroe, essentially, and I have, a lot of this stuff has now been declassified. So CIA had done a review or they had, investigated Bob Monroe because they wanted to use this processing that he had, this hemisync. They thought that might be really good for our remote viewers. If they could listen to this stuff, and would they do a better job remote viewing? And so Bob Monroe, they contracted Bob Monroe back in 1978 or whenever it was for 2.5 months of training. And they brought down like a busload of guys from Fort Meade in Maryland. And Bob's job was to, give them this gateway voyage kind of thing, or, run them through on listening to hemisync and, and how to make that, help them move them into altered states of consciousness much more quickly, so on and so forth. And the first contract that he had was for around 2.5 months of training for $2,000. And so it wasn't, it wasn't a lot of money, certainly not by today's standards,
Sure.
And, but they had done a thorough investigation. In fact, a lot of this material is now released, or been declassified. And they even did a really thorough, investigation into hemisync itself and how this process works. And they went after it from a scientific perspective and did a really great job at analyzing it and so on and so forth. And what folks didn't know is that Bob was also involved in probably the photograph that you saw with Ingo Swann, and Bob Monroe sitting there with Russell Targ and helped put up. That was probably over at Stanford Research Institute in California.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It just seemed like it was in a military base. And, in the conspiracy field, we put a lot of stuff together in our minds in the conspiracy field. But if you look at the research, right, they say, well, it was all inconclusive. Some of it was good, some of it was bad. But I think we all kind of know that, the military, if it did work, that they weren't going to publicly say, well, this works and we're doing it, right? So, well, that's just common sense to me.
Well, in around 1995 or 1996, it got leaked. The story got leaked, and it was sort of like New York Times, Chicago Tribune had headlines. You won't believe what the government's been doing. They've been training psychics as spies, right? And the giggle factor sets in. And when you've got a top secret program and suddenly everybody knows about it, it kind of loses its value. So, right. CIA after that came out and said, yeah, we've been doing it for 23 years, but it really doesn't work that good, so we're quitting. Uh-huh. And it was actually a born-again Christian congressman or politician who pulled the plug on it after many years. And so they said, well, so they're going to decommission Stargate. Which they did, and the folks that were involved in it, the guys and gals, were reassigned to other things or other divisions or retired, and were led to believe that was it. Do you think?
Right, that's my point. Like, they would tell you, intelligence has to be intelligence for a reason, and I think a lot of us think that we know how intelligence works, but I don't really think that we do. And if you think about the technology that they have nowadays, imagine that, how powerful that could be with the tech we have now, especially when it comes to observing people and having psychics at your whim. I mean, if I ran a CIA department and the public knew about it, that's what I would do. I would put out disinfo and say, look, this thing doesn't really work as well as we thought. We're shutting it down. And then I would get my team and do it behind the scenes, But see, all that speculation. It's fun to speculate, I guess.
Yes. The reality is, is that for intelligence services, and I think you're pretty dead on when you talk about, given the technology that we have today, and if you wed that with, pure psychic functioning, like trained remote viewers, that's a very, very powerful, it can be a very, very powerful tool. And the reality is that even, for whether it's CIA, whether it's FBI, Army intelligence, Defense Department, Army intelligence, so on and so forth, it could be just the smallest thing. If they're looking for, bad people or something like that, or missing hostages, and basically for most policemen, they don't want to be caught dead standing beside a psychic, right? But when they're up against the wall, and it could be just the smallest thing that gets them in the right direction. And that is very valuable. And what we've seen over the years, is really an incredible story of using psychic abilities to do just that. And so we've got people like Joseph McMonigal at the Monroe Institute in Virginia. Joe was probably one of the best remote viewers on the planet. Unbelievable, startling ability at describing any person, place, thing, or event anywhere on this planet, back in time or in the future. These people, were real, and this project was real, and these folks can do it. And we've seen, startling evidence, like, so stunning that, and so you can, I would speculate that there's a whole lot of remote viewers still used in the world.
No, yeah, absolutely. I speculate the same thing. I think a lot of us want to learn how to do it. They even got podcasts now out where they do public projects, like Cat in the Box and stuff, where they're trying to learn how to do these things. But, we're at the top of the hour here. We only got a few minutes left with Mr. Elder, so you guys get your questions in. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
We can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't
you? This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing this journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Tesey. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck, Wonderlight Tarot, are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com. We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves stripped bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137. Now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247. Now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts. We've heard your feedback loud and clear. You called it out, and now we're answering. All new live programming, 5 nights a week. Always remember, the Fringe FM is for you, the listener, and we appreciate your feedback. Keep the feedback coming. You can email us at talkback@thefringe.fm, call the station at 501-777-5631, or send us a message on Facebook at The Fringe FM.
Listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Occult Arcana is a balanced and objective guide to those subjects considered a part of the nature of light and darkness. Addressed in this text is a compilation of material that will provide new perspectives and awaken latent abilities that we all possess. The content herein shall provide magical sustenance for adept and novice alike, and will help strengthen the cornerstone of mystic understanding and alchemical transmutation. If you are interested in this modern grimoire, you can find detailed information and ways to order by visiting www.thesecretteachings.info. Although esoteric and occult studies remain vast, they are rooted within a universal philosophy that is difficult, if not impossible by finite terms, to explain in words. Language places restriction and erects barriers to understandings. By this it is to be understood that there are some things man should consider far too sacred to profane with definition. For these concepts and the manner by which we live our lives, we shall take a note from the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Quote, "Silence is better than unmeaning words." End quote. To get your autographed copy of Occult Arcana today, simply visit www.thesecretteachings.info or email The Secret Teachings at rdgable@yahoo.com.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, here live with you on the Fringe FM. Tonight we're with author, speaker, and Monroe Institute instructor Paul Elder. And we were just talking about the Stargate program, some of the people that he got to train with. And I wanted to talk about your book, but I want to make sure that we finish that story, Paul, because a lot of people are interested in that. You had mentioned the tech named Skip. Was it something about him that got you involved with those folks at Stargate?
Well, it was interesting. It was, because I knew nothing about this kind of stuff, right? And so I'm just, in the isolation chamber, and the voice on my headphones when I would dip into some, place, and some of the things that it described, got somebody's attention, and as I mentioned, then one day I told about this program, and they thought that I had some abilities in it, and as I mentioned, I spent a fair amount of time training with some of the original Stargate personnel, and I found out that this guy named Skip, who was basically the research director at the Monroe Institute, that Skip Atwater, that his name actually used to be Captain Fred Atwater, and he was the original manager of Stargate at Fort Meade in Maryland for a number of years. And when the Stargate was decommissioned and when Skip retired, Bob hired him at the Monroe Institute in Virginia as the research director. And so then it all made sense. And long story short, essentially, due to those things that happened to me and what I described, I was hired as a remote viewing instructor for the first remote viewing that we did, in offering seminars at the Monroe Institute. So Skip Atwater, or former Captain Fred Atwater, and I trained the remote viewing classes for 10 years in Virginia.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I continue to do that here in Canada on Vancouver Island, and also training other programs in Virginia as well.
So just for my own purposes here, before we talk about remote viewing and your book, how many, those out of body experiences that you and I talked about earlier, the ones you really know, the ones you really get excited about, how many of those do you think you've had throughout your lifetime?
Oh goodness. Hundreds.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well, you see, I do actually, not as much now as I used to, because I'm getting older and too busy. But I used to do, quite a bit of, intelligence work and things like that in Canada, and and helping out with, intelligence agencies sometimes in the U.S. And a lot of times, if we're, depending on the importance, perhaps, is unfortunately only about 3 out of 10 times, or a third, or 30% or so of my remote viewings, I might have what they call a bilocation. All right, and that's like, is it an out of body experience? I don't know. But it's just all of a sudden my consciousness is transferred to wherever I need to be. And then you can, like I mentioned before, you can pretty much take it to the bank then. All right. Unfortunately, that only happens about 30% of the time. All right. So sometimes if we're working on, missing hostages or, missing people and so on and so forth, I will find myself floating at the site, wherever that is. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen often enough. But in the process of remote viewing, that isn't necessary. All right. It's nice to have it when it happens. But this protocol that was developed by Ingo Swann at the Stanford Research Institute and with Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff and a fellow named Pat Price, many, many years ago in the early stages. And they enlisted Bob Monroe's technology and his help in developing and helping to develop this process. And that's where you were talking about, where you saw, probably the picture of Bob Monroe with Ingo Swann and, people like that. And I got to meet Bob Monroe and knew him for several years before he died in 95, I think, or 96. I'm not sure which one it is. And so there's an amazing amount of background. And when we talk about, and I have access, thank goodness, to a tremendous amount of research. And even looking into sports, people who have talent that is so amazing, like say in sporting activity, like Wayne Gretzky of the hockey world, or Dennis Rodman, what allows these people to be so darn talented, and some folks actually do some research on this and determine that they're psychic. How does Wayne Gretzky completely go against, in the old days, when the whole play is going towards the other end of the ice and Wayne turns around and skates back into his own end and then suddenly, into the other end, and suddenly the puck is on his stick. Was that just lucky or was he psychic? So even, things like that. So there's a tremendous amount of research that goes on. And this is what I find so fascinating about consciousness itself. For instance, even if I'm talking about dream labs or sleep labs and so on and so forth. And folks will, and it's a big surprise because, I spent some time in a sleep lab, this is a number of years ago, and had this long dream, and it's, the kind that we sometimes have. It seems to go on and on, for like 2 hours, and sometimes you get up and go to the bathroom and crawl back into bed and the dream continues again, right? And I'm thinking that was like a 2-hour dream. And the technician because I was hooked up with the brain scan, the technician said, 2 hours? You want to see your dream? And he showed me on their computer printout. It was about 2.5 seconds.
Wow.
And I find it's like a download. To me, it was like a 2-hour dream. But it's like, the consciousness is there, or the message is there, or our connection to wherever that was, is happening. And, it's just, to me, it's, it's like a huge download from the universe somewhere. So there's some really, really cool things about consciousness, about deja vu, about a whole bunch of different things. And remote viewing is one of them. And it just excites me because, we are in a time, I think, notwithstanding some of the craziness that's going on in the world right now, this is a very damn cool time to be alive.
Yeah, it really is.
There is stuff coming along, and I think we are within years of the landing on the lawn. I'm talking full disclosure, ET, here we go, that kind of stuff. So these are exciting times, and technology is sort of giving us that.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes we take a lot of that stuff for granted too. What I mean by that is I want to be a better explorer of consciousness. That's my whole point of trying to do this. I'm trying to become better at these types of things. And there's a lot of stuff that gets in the way, like I was mentioning, beliefs and things, but I don't want to just totally not believe in anything. And so that's why we're kind of interested in your book, Eyes of an Angel, because you talk about spirit guides or in that book, right? Things or beings that you met that were trying to help you along the way.
Right.
Which I think we make a lot of assumptions, but do you know for a fact that they were your guides or your higher self, or what were these beings?
Well, they were, I think we are all individuated aspects.
Okay.
The creator. All right. And in this particular case, and what I wrote about in my book, this particular spirit guide, he was plan B, and because I had agreed to do certain things or to pursue certain fields in this lifetime and was procrastinating. And so it took a very powerful being spirit guide, if you will, with a very powerful energy to come along and whack me in the head and get my attention. All right. And so that seems to have been his role. and very much, real from my perspective. Now, you have to understand that I would not have believed a damn word of this if it hadn't happened to me. I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan, Canada, and we didn't have anything. And, so flights of fancy and things like that, weren't a part of it. But having had the near-death experiences, that changed it, and that opened it up for me.
Yeah, because, William Billman talked about that too. You said it earlier. I didn't meet Jesus. I didn't meet anybody with wings, but he did bring up the fact that the more he allowed himself to let go, the more he would turn into like this dot, or what did he call it? Like a ball of light, right?
Right.
Has that ever happened to you where you just turn into like a ball of light?
Well, that's who we are. We are, conscious vibrational energy. These bodies we just happen to inhabit right now so we can have this physical experience. And we come here for the tough stuff. We come here, and we plan out this is sort of what I've learned, over the years through guidance and through a whole bunch of, just after hundreds of out-of-body experiences and, and remote viewing and so on and so forth. These are the kinds of things that have, kind of come to a conclusion about. I don't think that there is a separate being that we can pray to on Saturday night to help us win bingo on Sunday. All right. So I think when it comes to our notions of God, and who is God, and I think that we are all individuated aspects of the Creator. So in that sense, this sounds like a new agey kind of thing to say, but we are all one. And that was my experience in the last near-death experience as well, is this connection with everything and everyone. And I think that's the closest to the truth of it. As a collective consciousness, I think we are the creators, and we come here as individuated aspects. And we agree, with other members of our soul group or soul family, so that we come here and we might, this time I might have been the son, last time I might have been the dad or something like this as we go along through these. And we also make agreements before we come here with other souls in our group that are going to come along and push every damn button we have. And you all know who that is in your life, and they might be the most important in that agreement. See, because we come into a physical life for the tough stuff. If we want easy, we stay on the other side. All right. We come here to get our butts kicked and our hearts broken. Because man, when you and this might sound completely crazy, but from the perspective of life, when your heart is broken, when you have a broken leg and the pain is so unbelievably exquisite, damn, you're alive.
Yeah, for
and
real.
That experience is not available other than vicariously through spirit guides, et cetera, except for folks who come and do this physical life. And so who we really are is we are energy. And I think one of the similes that I use, if you were to envision that the consciousness of God are the oceans of the world, all right? We are the individual drops of water in the ocean. But every single one of us has the DNA and the blueprint for the entire ocean. So as a collective consciousness, we are the creator. There is no being that I found, and I don't mean to step on, religious toes and stuff, but I have not found any being, there is no being in the universe that's more powerful than you are.
Yeah, that kind of lines up with a lot of people's experiences that I find credible too. I mean, there are people that don't want to hear that, and I get it, because I think to have a little bit of fear is a good thing, but what you're implying when you say that is you're implying that a lot of things that break up our programming, that what about when we mess up, or what about karma, and what about good and evil? And it gets into a whole big discussion about a lot of these things, but I think I understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah. Well, there is no hell other than the ones we create ourselves, and we do that. All right. And even the Catholic Church is, I was raised Catholic, even the Catholic Church is coming closer. In fact, they were saying, no, there is no hell.
Right.
Which is really, kind of mind boggling. But what I find is this is such an amazing journey. To me, this is exciting because we can find out about ourselves and that we're on this ride here, and that's who we are. And when people have this perception of, in an altered state of consciousness, of moving away from their body, what is it that is floating at your ceiling, looking down at your physical body?
Mm-hmm.
It's not another physical body, that's for sure. You are a ball of energy, of consciousness.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Right, because that's a lot of the same stuff William was saying, and even Robert started saying in his third book.
Yeah,
that
totally.
the more he let go of his beliefs or his idea of what we're supposed to be, the more that consciousness started showing him what he really is, which was this ball of energy, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, conscious living energy, and this is kind of a whole bunch of years ago, in the early years when I began to go out of body. And I found myself, I was in my bedroom, so I floated out of my body, and I'm in my bedroom, and I walked in front of the mirror in my bedroom. We had this dresser with a mirror on it. And I thought, what? Because I could not see me, right? I could feel, I could reach out with my hands, I could touch things, but I couldn't see anything. Right. So I thought, well, what do I look like? And so I actually stopped right in front of the mirror. I looked in the mirror and I saw only the reflection of the room behind me. It was so maddening.
That's wild. Yeah.
And strangely enough, I thought, hey, maybe I'm a vampire because you can't see silly notions. But it was I'm not sure. It was really perplexing because I thought, no, I want to see something. And all I saw was, my bedroom and my bed and my sleeping body, behind me.
So you might be one of the people, I've had this discussion before, one of the people walking on the face of this earth that's not afraid to pass away, right?
Oh,
You've already been there several times.
Yeah, 5 times. And seriously, I am looking forward to it. One of these times I'm going to get it right. But there's some cool stuff. I've got to wait because there's some cool stuff coming, in the next few years. This is a really, really way cool time to be alive.
What do you mean? Do you know something that we don't? What do you mean that's coming?
Well, perhaps.
Perhaps. You just don't want to speculate, or you don't want us to. I get it. But I'm glad you said that because I feel that way. I think a lot of us feel that. But there's other people that feel that there's a lot of doom coming too. I wonder sometimes just how much our thoughts and our beliefs affect what's really going to happen when it comes to our future. I really do.
Yeah, totally. But we are really in a very, very cool time to be alive. In fact, this is why we're here, because this is, a really cool time in history and in the history of consciousness. So we're seeing some things that are developing now, or that we're seeing some things that are over the next few years are going to take place that are truly mind-boggling. And I actually get to sometimes remote view the future and future aspects of things, and I'm excited about it. It's really, really cool.
Wow. How can we find you? Like, I know, get your book. It's on Amazon. It's at your website. It's at the Monroe Institute website too, right?
Right.
I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably the easiest place is on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, or whatever. Eyes of an Angel. As you mentioned, our website. If you Google Monroe Institute Canada, you'll get our website in Vancouver Island, or or the Virginia campus, or whatever. There's lots of information out there.
Where are you at on social media? Do you participate in that much?
Well, I really hate it, but
I do too.
It's addicting, and I don't want to be addicted to it. But it's sort of, if you're going to be, like on Facebook, is the only thing I do. I don't do Twitter or anything else like that. But I'm on Facebook. Have a and it's almost this day and age, it's kind of necessary almost if you're running a business, especially offering seminars in consciousness and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's on Facebook as well.
And in your book, do you talk about a lot of what happened to you, but do you discuss your beliefs and thoughts on these matters as well, and some teachings in that book?
Totally. Really, you can't, if you can find yourself suddenly outside of your body, thinking more clearly than you ever have before, and you can see your own body 30 feet away. How is that possible? And so it doesn't take long, it takes one experience for you to know that we are not that physical body, because your mind, your consciousness exists without your body. And it's an interesting thing, given that, I was raised as a Catholic, so I can rationalize or imagine that, and like the Catholic faith belief, that the soul didn't exist until God poked it into that little baby, right?
Yeah.
But I can rationalize the thing, okay, maybe, right? But here's the deal. Having now had several near-death experiences, I cannot imagine not existing. We just transit into a different dimension, if you will. And so we are eternal beings, and we've been there for, forever, perhaps. Like I say, I truly believe that we are individuated aspects of the Creator.
Yeah, because you brought that up earlier, because when I was asking you hard semantic type questions, you were like, well, we're all kind of having our own individuated experience to begin with. And I think in this field of consciousness and consciousness exploration, we're always trying to find common ground or some means to where we can all figure out something that we're all doing the same, and I wonder if that's why you teach a lot about remote viewing, because all of us can tap into this, right?
Totally. This is something, it's an innate ability that every human being on the planet has. And it's just that we don't rationalize that. But everything I've trained almost just around 3,000 people in remote viewing, and I've not run into a single person who just didn't get it. All right, it's just an amazing natural ability that we all have. Now, some people are obviously much better at it, or talented at it, or have an ability towards it. Sort of like musical ability. It's not spread evenly across through society. Everybody can learn to play the piano competently, but only a few get to go to Carnegie Hall, kind of thing. But we can prove it to ourselves, and to me, that's the benefit of doing that. Is like, what can I do? Can I be working, for some company doing remote viewing? Well, maybe not, probably not. But I think the benefit of doing that and knowing that is sort of like, and Skip Badwater talked about this. It's like when you were a kid in school and you said to the teacher, well, why do I have to learn geometry? And the teacher says, well, that's because you might be an engineer someday. Well, how many of those kids got to be engineers? Maybe what the teacher could have said is, well, if you learn the maths and sciences and foreign languages and so on and so forth, you get to experience life from a much broader perspective. And I think that's the value of remote viewing, to discover who you really are, that you're connected in ways to everything in the universe, for that matter. And I think that's a valuable thing.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, I just want to find out, because I know I have quite a few Canadian listeners. In fact, Dawn is from Canada, and she's a part of our team here at Lighting the Void. Those folks that live in Canada, when do you do those workshops?
Well, we do a bunch of them. Usually 10 of them through the. See, in addition to the ones, I also am a trainer at the Monroe Institute in Virginia.
Okay.
So they fly me in to Virginia several times a year, and then I train the programs here on the island as well. So probably the best thing I can tell is just go to the website. If they want it, to the schedule page on the Monroe Institute Canada. And it'll show, all of the programs that we have, gateway voyages and so on and so forth.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Lighting the Void, Paul. It was a real pleasure having you on here. And we're going to rant about this a little bit more with my co-host, Reverend Dan Lopez and stuff. But I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your experience and talking to us about this with us. It's been a real pleasure.
My pleasure, Joe. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
This is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on the Fringe FM.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Parabnormal News. I'm Brad Bernards. Fast radio bursts, or FRBs, are one of astronomy's hottest topics and biggest mysteries. These brief bursts of radio waves from outside the Milky Way typically pop off for only a fraction of a second, then disappear forever. Only 2 FRBs have ever been caught repeating, according to Discover Magazine's online blog, Debrief. Kendrick Smith of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics tries to explain what these FRBs are.
And the 21st century mysterious surprise is the fast radio burst, which is some sort of very energetic event that happens at a great distance that we observe here on Earth as a brief pulse of radio waves coming from very far away.
So what about this mystery of FRBs? Here's computational scientist Dustin Lang.
Fast radio bursts are a really exciting mystery. We have more ideas of what they could be than we have actual detected fast radio bursts.
The current prevailing theory is that FRBs are outbursts that occur on magnetars. Tracking an FRB back to its home galaxy is challenging. As more and better radio instruments come online, astronomers are hopeful they'll be able to unravel the mystery. It's the dream of every Jedi wannabe, especially those who had plastic flashlight versions. Take hope, young Skywalkers, that day may be coming sooner than you think. Mysterious Universe reports that physicists have discovered a new and easy way to make hybrid light particles that behave more like matter. But will it fit into a light sword handle? You're going to need some rubidium splits, which will enable flocate polaritons to give you states of strongly correlated photons. Physicists at the University of Chicago published details of their research this week in the journal Nature with a video that helps non-physicists wrap their heads around the idea. Study co-author Logan Clark explained in a press release how others had first created polaritons as a byproduct, but his team was the first to make them intentionally. Unfortunately, he doesn't see these as a solid form of light for lightsabers, but rather a kind of fluid. Light super soakers. Find all of tonight's stories at parabnormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Light in the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
I want to thank Paul Elder for coming on the program. Listen, I wanted to talk to you guys real quick about why we are just on the Fringe FM, and we'll get into this discussion a little bit deeper. Also, the call-in number is 1-800-588-0335 if you wanted to call in too as well. So if you didn't notice, like earlier, the stream dropped off one time just for a little bit, and that's because I hit the wrong button. And the second time it drops off, I think it was a connection issue. But the cool thing is when it does that, it doesn't shut the whole server down, and all I have to do is keep dialing back the kilobytes per second until it doesn't do that anymore, which I couldn't do on Spreaker. But I wanted to say that I had a listener try to, I don't know what you call it, poke the bear by giving me the guilt trip about leaving Spreaker, and didn't understand. He goes, this is what he said verbatim. He said, I think that you're trying to get people just to listen to your network. And I thought, Jesus, I mean, I don't want to cut the guy down too much, but look, if you're listening to my show on podcast version, YouTube, SoundCloud, God knows, all those different places where you're listening to the show, you're listening on the Fringe FM. The Fringe FM is not designated to a stream. It's a group of people that broadcast. That's all it is. We have a mainstream, which is the Fringe FM, and the app, but I get no benefit if you listen to the stream at other places. It's all the same to me. The only benefit is a technical benefit to where I can adjust things if I need to. And so if you notice on the player, like if you're using the Fringe FM app or you're on the website, it still shows I think a backup show, like it shows a title. The metadata is not correct. So there's some things that I got to work out there, but we've always wanted to get like a physical encoder, like a Telos, so we don't have to worry about that. So if the internet does just blip out for a second or two, it won't drop. And out here in the country where I live, with my super fast 2 megabit uploads per second, if the internet blips out, and it does sometimes, it's just gonna happen. There's nothing you can do about it. But I got more options this way. And so I wanted to tell you, like, there's so many ways that you can listen to the show, not just the Fringe FM or the app. You can listen on TalkStream Live. You can listen on the Paranormal Radio app. I have my own section there. It's got my head, like a shot of Joe Roop on there that says Lighting the Void. And that's the AAC one on the Paranormal Radio app. There's pop-out players on the website. I'll tell you the coolest app that I've ever used in my life when it comes to radio, and if you love radio, you're going to love this. It's called Radio Garden. Now, this thing is really cool. You can scroll around on it. It gives you a picture of like planet Earth, and it's got green dots for every single radio station on the planet. It doesn't matter if it's FM, if it's digital like our station, if it's ham radio. Everybody submits their radio stations to this thing, and so you get to scroll around like a ball around the planet, zoom into where you want, and listen to any radio station. So to me, I have found that is the coolest thing to use as far as fun goes, right? Now, the most dependable thing to listen to would be the Fringe FM app or TalkStream Live or the Paranormal Radio app. And I say that because I would say tune in. But the only reason why I don't say tune in, which you can listen to the show there too under the Fringe FM, is because if you don't pay for a premium account at TuneIn, as soon as you turn it on, guess what you hear? Ads, right? And so you're listening to, 60 seconds of ads and you're missing the show, which kind of sucks, which is another thing that Spreaker's kind of pushing on people. They want you to pay or to turn on the ads so you can make money. Now, we have advertisements on the show, but only with people that I really know. Like for those of you that came in the webinar, you really now, I hope you understand why I like Ronnie and why I like his supplement so much and what they've done for me and what they're doing for some of you. But I want to get into like an ethical thing real quick, and we'll get back to the program and talk about, out-of-body experiences and some of the stuff that's been happening today, and we'll bring Dan on too. But you either support this show or you don't. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like if you're an artist and you have paintings and somebody, or you do rap music or whatever it is you do, and you have the people that support you. They support you. They don't support where you put your art up at or wherever you hang your hat. They support your work. Now, I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, give or take, ever since I started. I started out with a podcast called White Trash Guru, which was a total fail, but it was really fun. It was kind of like a YouTube thing. And I dumped that and went into Lighting the Void as soon as, right after Art Bell quit. And along the way, we've had a lot of supporters that come and go. Supporters that they support you until you say something they don't like, or they support you until you disagree with something that they don't agree with, or they support you until this is something else I'm learning, until you stop using the technology that they like. So these people support you, I think, because either you validate their own ideas or you validate something that's easy for them. Now, don't get me wrong, Spreaker's a fantastic app if you're a podcaster, and I will continue to use it that way, and so will the Fringe FM. As a matter of fact, there is a broadcast stream over there that we're working on. If I can get a cloud encoder of some type or some type of relay, where we're going to have a 24/7 stream at Spreaker as well. So we got streams all over the place. And when this is all over, we're going to have like 5 or 6 different streams. So to say that I'm trying to get you to listen to the Fringe FM on TuneIn, TalkStream Live, the Paranormal Radio app, all these other places besides Spreaker, is to push you to the network is just stupid. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. And it's kind of trollish, to be honest with you. So what I've learned to do is to try to be a little bit more professional about things. And as soon as that stuff starts happening, we just nip it at the butt. We're not going to put up with it. Either support us or you don't. And there's people I support no matter what they do or how they do it. Like Grimerica, for example. They're on YouTube. They're on all kinds of different places. They've got their own streaming channel, but they're on all kinds of different platforms. The platform has nothing to do with it, but I support them. There's artists that I support too as well. And so I hope some of you know what I'm getting at, because I even had a listener who a long time ago, I'm trying to think what happened. Oh, I had a guest on that he didn't like. And not only did he not like him, he thought that I was promoting this guy. Well, the guest was my friend, and some of these guests are my friends, and some of their pasts isn't really like that great, but I don't judge people by their past. I never have. I stopped doing that a long time ago. And because I said, well, you know, I got a little defensive about it, he stopped supporting me because I had a guest on that he didn't like. And this is when I started learning about how, you know, I love you guys. I love my audience, but honestly, I love radio more. I love doing this more. And, my supporters and my listeners are, God, I mean, they are the backbone of the show. But when I say that, I'm talking about my diehard real supporters like Dan, Mary, like Dennis, you know, people that allow you to make mistakes. As long as you're self-correcting, they don't care. They just want to see you grow. And so with that said, I want to give a shout out to those folks like Dan and especially Dennis and Jen, and some of the people that are over in the Discord chat tonight that support the show no matter what technical platform they're on or whatever, and aren't trying to come up with some some way that I'm trying to manipulate folks. And I get it. I mean, I know some of you are used to being lied to, and some of you are used to being manipulated by people in a lot of different ways in your life, especially on the internet. But if you haven't figured out by now that I'm not here to lie or manipulate you, then you don't know me at all. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. The simple fact is I can't do those types of things because I just don't have the energy to lie and manipulate. I'm far too lazy to do it. I'm way too lazy to lie and manipulate it because you got to keep covering that stuff up and covering up your tracks. But you'll know those type of people because they constantly question everything you say and do because they're trying to either catch you in a lie or they just don't believe the stuff you say. And I think that's based on your experience, right? Like, I don't blame you. If you've had a lot of people treat you like crap and lie to you and manipulate you in your life, then it's hard to believe that somebody's actually being genuine with you. It really is. I get it. It's hard to believe that. But there are genuine people in this world, and especially when you're broadcasting, you can't lie. You just can't, because it's going to come back and get you. I promise you. So if anybody's thinking about doing a radio show or podcast, and take that to heart, the number one rule you need to have, and I mean this, is tell the truth, because these people listen to your every word. They'll find out if you are lying. And you should do that anyways, but I'm just saying, if you plan on doing it, make sure you tell the truth. And I don't know if you're there. Are you there, Dan? Are you with me?
I'm here.
I had to do that little rant and get that over with. Yeah, I mean, they were just grinding me out last week about it. Like, what are you going to do, man? What about the people that were there in the beginning? And it's like, there were a lot of people here in the beginning, not just the people over at Spreaker. I didn't start on Spreaker. I started on the network, you know. Right. And you've been there since the beginning. So I think there's this people that want to bring you down, and they want to play mind games with you. And this particular person, a lot of people had warned me about him. So that guy's got weird energy. He's constantly messing with people's heads. You know, he's a professional troll. And I'm like, I don't know about all that. Maybe we all got our own issues. We all got our own trust issues. I mean, I do, especially when it comes to women. I don't trust none of y'all. No, I'm just playing. I love you.
No, he's not.
No, I love you. I've learned that too. Like throughout this show, I have to say that the majority of the people that have supported the show since the beginning have been people I never would have thought would support me. It's just blown my mind based on all my previous preconceived notions and biases and all the things that I grew up with. But that one out-of-body experience that I had shook up my world, and that's kind of why we've been doing this. And I know that we talk about that a lot on the show, but I like to get into the semantics of it, Dan. I think there are things that we can figure out, you know. There are things that we'll never figure out, like I think who is God or what is God really. I don't think we're really going to figure that out while we're alive in this physical body. but how to remote view, how to become a better explorer of consciousness, how to have a out-of-body experience. After talking to some of these folks, I think we can learn how to do these things better. Like what Paul was saying. And the more he talks about it, the more it makes sense. Because actually, I did let go when I had my experience like that. I was so frustrated about it, that it wasn't happening, that it's kind of like the same way magic works. I just figured, it didn't work, and turned around and it worked, which is kind of trippy.
Yeah.
So
there are a lot of principles that work on in the same manner.
Yeah. Like, and if you say, for instance, if you do, we talked about this before, like sigil magic or things where you're doing magic, and you tell your mind, you either forget about the operation that you did, or you say that it don't work. Well, it didn't work, and then you move on. Well, it's like the second you move on, the second your mind stops focusing on wanting it to work, that's when it happens.
Right. Even intention work. Intention work works the same way. And the best intention work is not the work that you would do, like if you fear someone. So you have the intention that you want to make sure that your kids get home safe and stuff like that, right? Which is a normal intention for many parents.
Yeah.
So what happens is that what you do is you let it go, you give it over, you have faith and you pray on it and stuff like that, and then you say, okay, it's out of my hands, and usually your kids come home safe, But in the same vein, pay attention to what you're feeling. Pay attention to what's going on, because you bind with people. So if you have premonitions or you have whatever, you have a feeling, chances are, I'd go by those feelings and just pray for the best, because you know what's going on better than anybody else.
Yeah, something else I want to talk to when we come back here is the Area 51 raid. Of course, I'm going to talk about that, right? Yeah, because we've been getting into some deep discussions on social media about all of those warriors out there. But check this out. So Eyes Open drops this in the Fringe FM chat under the Sweet Dreams, hashtag Sweet Dreams, which is our dream channel. And she says, so when I was a kid, I had a lot of problems falling asleep. For many reasons. I was around 9 or 10 when I figured out a trick, but I don't know where I came up with this technique. I couldn't have read it anywhere or heard about it from somewhere at such a young age. And we didn't have the internet or school at home, so I'm wondering if anyone else recognizes this or finds it similar to what people do to go astral, as I think that's what I might have been doing. So I'm laying on my back with my head on top of where the two sets of pillows meet in the middle of the bed. Both arms tucked up and in between the top and bottom pillows on either side of my hand, somewhere behind my head, but not directly behind. My legs are positioned like the hanged man, like a number 4. I put up a pale green protective energy bubble to keep the thing that stalks my sleep at bay, and I close my eyes. In my mind, I watch myself walk into a dark black room with no windows, no lights, no furniture except a small single bed pushed into the far right corner. I see myself walk over to the bed, pull up the covers so I can slide in and get comfy. And when that other me closes their eyes, I see the lids lowering as if my physical ones were closing too, and everything goes pitch black. I liked going to sleep in that room because there was zero light, zero illumination from anything, so nothing could disturb the sleep I could have there. Does that sound like anything to any of you? So she come up with this when she was a kid to put herself to sleep because she couldn't sleep at night, and is wondering if that's familiar to any of us or where she might have got that from. I've never heard that before. Have you heard anything like that, Dan?
Not in that particular vein, but they have had, there was a study that was done with Olympic basketball players where they had set aside these basketball players and they were going in to play a game. Now, before they played the game, they had set aside a bunch of guys to do the free throws who were just going to go out and practice and just shoot the free throws. Then they had a bunch of guys who were going to just sit down in a room and pretend in their head that they were practicing the free throws. And it turned out that the guys who were practicing doing the free throws averaged out just as well as the people who didn't practice at all.
Really?
And just did it, through their imagination.
Yeah, see, this is the stuff that I think we should talk about more, right? I mean, we get into esoteric and magic a lot, but learning some tricks, that's even better. And I want you guys to check this book out. I'm going to try to get this guy on the broadcast. I don't know. I hope my show's big enough for him, but if not, maybe he'll come on later. But there's a book out called The Miracle Club by Mitch Horowitz. And I was going to his website. I think I stumbled onto his website from Gordon's site. But anyways, he had a few articles on Medium and a few articles on his website. And I thought, wow, this guy's kind of fascinating. So I got his book on Audible called The Miracle Club. And in that book, he talks about some things I want to talk to you guys about with it. I found, which is really fascinating. He talks specifically about what you can actually do in the hypnagogic state, which I think is cool because to me, the hypnagogic state is kind of like a barrier between sleep and awake, or if you're going to have an out-of-body experience or not. But there's other things that you can do in that state that can actually influence your life, according to what he's saying, and maybe some of his own experience, right? And I'm just now starting the book. If any of you guys have read the whole book, or if you're getting into it, or maybe you could read it with me, which is something else I'm going to do too. Once I get done with updating Lighting the Void, I'm going to have a blog on there, and that blog is mainly going to have all of the books that I've read, all of the reviews of every book I've ever read, as well as some of my own thoughts and ideas on there as well. Because so many of you guys asked me about books, and you asked Jeff Harmon about books, and I know you're interested in a lot of the same stuff that we are, so we're going to talk about that too on the blog. And of course, you people that want to write articles are more than welcome to put your articles on Lighting the Void blog too. In fact, I'll probably copy some of those Fringe FM blog posts and put them on there to get you out there too, because some of you guys just listening to your experience and having you write about things is just fascinating. And I'm really, really thinking about this because, you know, Dan, most nights people have big name guests on or authors and stuff because they're trying to captivate the audience or whatever. But I have really found that there's some really cool stuff with the listeners. And if I think they'll do it, I'm thinking about designating maybe one night a week to listeners coming on and doing a segment if they'll do it, you know. What do you think?
Why not? That's what I used to do. That's how my thing got pretty good, because I used to bring out most of my listeners. But then again, I used to interact in other shows too, as well. You know, I'd get in their chat rooms, I'd get in their shows, and the guests, you know, we're a pretty wild bunch. You know,
yeah.
The community's a pretty wild bunch. But there's a lot of talented people out there, and a lot of people have a lot of experiences in different areas. And like I said, there's somebody out there for everybody. And so if you share your story, chances are somebody else had the same experience and they won't feel alone and stuff like that. Or they'll be able to say, God, thank God there's somebody else out there like me. You know, so, and you have the other things to share, which opens your mind to new ways of thinking and new ways of being, you know, and you don't have to feel like you're stuck at some place, you know. So you listen to different shows, and you listen to different hosts, and you listen to different guests. And eventually you find your story, you know, you find your people, you find your niche, you find your group, you know. It's a journey, like you said, it's a journey. And so it's all about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I've found half of the stuff I've learned is from the guests I've had on, and the other half is from the listeners. So I'm learning just as much from you guys as I am from people that are authors and movers and shakers. You know, people like John Anthony West, Whitley Strieber, Thomas Campbell. I could go down the list with you, and I'm learning just as much from you guys as well. So what does that mean when it comes to what we really know about consciousness and becoming an effective explorer of consciousness? We'll be right back with the Reverend Dan Lopez. Stay with us.
This is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Did you know that qualified patients can access medical cannabis in all 50 states? CannaSense is a medical cannabis collective that helps patients in all 50 states gain access to cannabis medication. CannaSense does this with a streamlined process and strict compliance with the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, the Affordable Care Act, and the U.S. Constitution. It is important for each patient to understand the legalities involved, the costs, and the benefits of cannabis medication. Through truth, legalization, and education, the medical benefits of cannabis will supplant recreational perceptions, and the real vision for change will be realized. Let the people and their personal doctors take control of their medical cannabis decisions before the greed of big business takes over. The tipping point for change is today, and CannaSense is ready to lead the charge and enable legal access for all qualified patients to medical cannabis through its proven system. For more information, go to thefringe.fm/care or click the banner on the website today.
Ahoy there, Gigi here from Shift Happens. Do you like to boogie down to topics such as ufology, the occult, and the mysteries behind our reality? Well, I invite you to join us every Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, that's 10 p.m. Eastern, as we like to punch that curiosity button and tickle that fancy. We tickle that fancy, but yeah, I don't know if that's the right analogy, but there's certainly a lot of tickling going on over here at Shift Happens.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
AncientLifeOil.com. For your CBD needs, just remember, AncientLifeOil.com. What does it do for the body, you ask? I can't say to the people in the suits that run the industry. Big Pharma's all over CBD because of its well, you know what I mean. Research the benefits of CBD on Google and come back to AncientLifeOil.com and purchase your CBD today. Non-GMO and all organic. You don't want to be using a petroleum product. You want to be using the cleanest CBD product on the market. AncientLifeOil.com. We even have CBD for your pet. Help your pet's discomfort. Help your discomfort. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Newly reduced prices to pass off the savings to the most important person. You. AncientLifeOil.com. And one more thing. We have topicals too. So if you have joint pain and some different issues that are going on in your body, you might want to use a topical. Think about it. AncientLifeOil.com.
Alex Exum.
This is Alex Exum of the Exum Experience in Live Talk, where we discuss current events, society, and culture. My shows are based in actuality, actual existence, contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. You can listen to me live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on KTLK, The Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on The Fringe FM.
You're listening to the Fringe FM, and I'm Michael Deacon reminding you can find my show right here on the Fringe FM every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, or by going to michaeldeacon.com. The choice is yours.
Damn, I should have went and peed. That's pretty bad when you're supposed to go take a pee break and you don't do it. Welcome back to Lighting the Void. Did you go to the little boy's room? I didn't. Anyways, I'm here with the Reverend Dan Lopez. I keep forgetting about that. That's what the breaks are for. Go to the bathroom, idiot.
Yeah.
You know? But I get to where I'm talking to you too much. Especially like when you make good points, I want to hear the rest of it. So earlier I was bringing up Mitch Horowitz and his book, The Miracle Club. And anyways, if any of you guys are open to reading along with me, I just started that book. So go grab it and, tell me what you think about it. Because this guy, he kind of talks about his beliefs, but he also leaves stuff on the table that should be there or that shouldn't be there. In other words, I guess what I'm trying to say is he understands confirmation bias, and he understands the difference between that and real research, but he talks about it all, and he really wants to figure out how to become a better, I guess, an effective explorer of consciousness and understand what we call occult or hidden things, right? So that's something I was wanting to talk about to you with Dan, like we talked about, and he brought this up in his book. We talk about the ego all the time. Now, back in the day, people would blame stuff when they messed up. They'd blame it on the devil, right? They'd say, well, the devil did it. Or they would say, and when I do good things, I give all the glory to God. When I do bad things, I blame it on the devil. Well, the New Age people say when we do good things, that's my essence, right? And when we do bad things, that's my ego. But if we're being really honest with ourselves, these are kind of beliefs, right? This is still just a concept. Like, we don't really know if the ego exists or not. Now, I know someone's listening going, yes, it does. I know it. I've seen it. Okay. What does it look like? Right. So it's just a concept. When we talk about metaphysical things, we're only talking about these things as a concept. And I think sometimes someone will say something and we'll just take it way out of whack. Here's a perfect example, the Area 51 thing that's happening, right? This guy that said he put this up, I want to run down and storm Area 51. They did it as a joke. But now you got all these people talking about really doing it, and they get into arguments on Facebook about why we should really do this. Power to the people type thing. I was talking to a listener of the show on Facebook yesterday, and I get that some of you are patriots and you want to know the truth, but what he was saying is kind of dangerous, man. If you think about it, I mean, he was saying well, if enough of us show up, they'll finally listen to us. And then he brought up something like our military is overexerted. So if we go down there, we got a chance. And I'm like, what are you saying? Do you know what you're saying? And all of this was based on concepts or ideas in a joke. Well, at least that's what the guy's saying. He might just be going back on it because so many people are doing it now. But you guys do realize that if you follow through with this belief that you're going to go down there to Area 51, and I know there's going to be some of you that do it, and you storm the gates like Jack Black says, see that fence, climb that shit, right? Storm the gates. If you do that, you're gonna get shot at the very least. And if you had millions of you there, they don't consider you a U.S. citizen. They know intelligence, and these people, they know how to cover up anything they do. And most of you know that they're willing to kill whoever they got to kill to protect what their military industrial complex. You think if you take 9/11, for example, most of us know that they shot down that one plane. We don't know that for a fact, but we kind of know they shot it down because it looks that way, right? If they're willing to shoot down a plane full of people, what do you think they're willing to do to a bunch of folks wearing alien hats and what they can consider tinfoil hats storming Area 51? It's not going to take much. So
okay, but how about another point of view or another view?
Are you playing devil's advocate, or this is your real point of view?
Yeah, well, it's just occurred to me now. So hear me out. What if this is just another distraction from something seriously going down that we should be paying attention to? That's number one. All right. Because we had all of this stuff and the Epstein thing and everything like that, and everybody's like bouncing all over the place, right? We had the Tic Tac and all of that nonsense and going on, right? So what if this is an op?
You mean the idea that they put it on Facebook could be just a psyop?
An op to see if the people actually have it in them to go against the gov.
So that would
and think of it this way: what a weird freaking place for it to happen. You wouldn't go to D.C. Why go to D.C.? Why take on the senators? Why not take on the House?
I just don't want anybody to get
Why
hurt,
not take it? You know, exactly. Why go out into the middle of the freaking desert, in the middle of freaking nowhere, and do this when you can just go ahead and take care of who's really in charge, or on the face of things, who's really in charge? Okay, that's the public image, right? Why deal with them? Why are we going up against our own, the military? Supposedly our own.
Yeah,
okay?
Marco said you might be right, man. I mean, Marco said in the Fringe FM chat, if you think about it, it could be a psyop to bring more internet restrictions.
Could be.
Think about that. So somebody starts an idea, everybody gets behind it. Next thing you know, you got all these people down at Area 51. Now they're trying to justify people bringing up what they quote dangerous ideas on the internet.
Well, they already started they had passed a law not too long ago, and it just went weird because you couldn't demonstrate in front of places, right? So you weren't allowed to go and demonstrate in front of the national monuments, in front of the House of Committee or whatever. You know, even if you had a permit, they won't offer you a permit because you're not allowed to demonstrate. Right? Yeah. So they're gonna. What if this is the same thing? So now it's not even. They'll banner it as your information is about to incite a riot.
Exactly.
So,
yes. Yeah.
So because of that, we're going to watch. Now we have more rights to regulate the internet, like you're saying. And then if there's this kind of, we're going to name it hate speech.
But it doesn't.
And if you hate the government, and if you hate the government, then you're not allowed to talk about it on here.
That's communism
on the internet. Damn right, it's communism. It's fascism.
Doesn't that go exactly with what I was saying? So okay,
think
about it. Like the concept is that the United States is run by the people. Okay. For the people, by the people, that's a concept. That's what we believe. If you're an art patriot, then you should really want that to be true, right?
Right, but then the justices turned around and said, okay, but now the corporations have the same rights as people. What?
Yeah. Now let's look at the reality of it. All right. The Patriot Act. This isn't 1776. We're not going down there with cannons and single shot rifles, with muzzleloaders. This is a different time and era. All right. And they've got the Patriot Act and several other things where they can consider you a non-citizen in a heartbeat if they want to. So when you threaten their national security, or you say, I'm going to storm the gates of Area 51, you may not even have to do it before they start considering you. They may right now, they might be trying to figure out who's really serious about this and who's not. And as soon as they put you in that category of the concept of terrorism, you're not a citizen anymore.
Well, here's the other thing. The other thing is that everybody who's even remotely looking at this stuff on the webs, they have your profile, they have everything, they have your IP address, they got everything they freaking need. And tell me this drone technology hasn't freaking done its job. So you get this drone technology, you have Facebook's facial recognition crap going on. And all they got to do is, come on down, storm the gates. And as you were saying, they got the drones out there, they got everybody's faces. Oh, yeah, they'll have masks on or everything like that or whatever. But that's only a small percentage, probably by the people who are inciting the damn thing to begin with. But everybody else is just innocent pot smokers, and the usual rabble rousers, and they don't really freaking think about or thinking forward in this manner, okay? But we are, okay? But we are, and so that's why you ain't gonna catch me down there, because they know everything that's going on. So you go down there and all of a sudden say that you're because now what's going on now? The DMV is changing anybody who's been to the DMV in the last couple of months knows what I'm talking about. All the systems are changing because they're moving over to this real ID stuff. And you want to talk about your citizenship? Your citizenship becomes negotiable now that you've been found in this kind of event.
Yep, that's it. Yeah. You're talking about Guantanamo Bay type stuff. If you live that long, and look, I just don't want anybody to get hurt. I mean, you guys are throwing up Spartan memes and stuff in the Fringe FM chat, okay?
But that's just the thing. Nobody has to get hurt.
Spartan, right? What did that guy say? First you fight what he told their kid, right? First you fight with your mind, and then you fight with your heart. Mm-hmm. If you really want to win this government back over, and let's be honest with ourselves, and you really want to get the power back in the hands of the people, I understand your heart, but if you don't use your mind first, it ain't going to work. I mean, you can't run down there and storm the gates because it's maybe they'll do something because they know we want to know now because we're raising enough stink. They already know that. Why do you think they're doing all this other PSYOP stuff with Elizondo and Blink 182 and him, pulling his collar out because he's so nervous when he's talking? A rock star. Think about that. They're already prepping for something. They already know we want to know the answers to it, but they don't for a second think that you're going to get inside their gates or figure out their ultimate secrets. I've been saying this since I was on Spaced Out Radio a long time ago. They do just enough to push you back. It's a psyops, just enough to keep the mob pushed back so they can do what they want to do.
And here's the other thing. Why so long before they even do this? That's like saying, hey, Charlie, check this out. I'm going to go rob your house next week.
Yeah, right. Be ready.
You know what I'm saying?
Here's the date and time.
You know
they
what
were
I'm
even
saying?
putting up maps of how they were going to do it. Yeah, that's funny.
How stupid is that?
Well, it's supposed to be a joke, right? But you guys that are doing it for a joke.
It is a joke.
Don't realize that some people are taking it seriously. And if you think they're not, they're messaging me about it. They're getting all passionate and stuff. They're ready to go down there.
Yeah.
And they're going to get hurt because of your joke. So just be careful, right? But when we live in a free country, we also have to be able to take that, I think, into consideration. Those concepts of freedom, we should be able to, like freedom of speech, that's supposed to protect people that say unpopular things. Freedom to die because you do something stupid. We don't need government stopping us from dying because we do stupid stuff. I think if somebody does something stupid and they die, and that's nature. But they're they're looking for opportunities to say, well, we've got to govern you more because you're too dumb to do this stuff on your own. More government, more government. And the more you guys do this stuff, the more you're giving them reasons to. If you think about that, we're having a hard enough fight trying to legalize marijuana across the states. Canada, this is what Canada did. Hey, what do you guys think about legalizing weed? Sounds good to me. We're having to fight it state by state because we got so much government here. It's crazy. And they already don't take us serious enough. Wait till we're all watching our flat screens on CNN when they hit you with a sonic weapon, rubber bullets, and gas. Look at all those crazy tinfoil hat folks. Ooh, 3 seconds, it's over. It ain't going to be funny. It's funny kind of thinking about it. It'll be one of those things where they laugh about. We give a lot of material for stand-up comedians. David Adair really showed me something, man. Like some of the conversations we had off the air really amazed me. We have no idea just how much these people know and observe us. If you go to the NRO, the National Reconnaissance, I think it's office or whatever, that website, those folks, they're in everything. That's the most dangerous place you could go to. As soon as you go there, they're watching you. That's what I've heard. Anyways, I don't know, but
that's how Facebook was. They did that. I mean, back in 2003, 2002. I mean, when I went on the Facebook, that was one of the biggest things that came out was, yo, man, the defense is on Facebook, and it said right there, how they were there to check out, everybody's stuff and make sure that their people are participating a certain way. I was like, holy smokes. And I mean, you're going to go down there. If you don't think there's going to be a media blackout, you're out of your mind. Your phones aren't going to work. Your internet's not going to work. They can shut down the power to anything surrounding area. So you'll be out SOL on that, Forget about trying to get a signal. And if you think you're going to get satellite, forget about that too, because they're going to jam that.
Yeah. Anybody got cell phone service? Hey, who do you got? I got Cricket. Sprint's not working either.
I don't know about you, but back in like 2007, they changed the radio frequencies for the garage doors, so you couldn't use them anymore. Like they just stopped working.
Do what?
People couldn't get into the garage door openers. You had to change your garage door opener, the motherboard on the garage door opener, to get a new chip, to get a new frequency chip, because the garage door and fobs. Because the garage door frequency that they were using, the military took it over.
Wow. Yeah.
So it wasn't even about transmitting. They went out and just flat out jammed it. So what do I think? I think they have the same technology that they're going to do when they get out there. People think that they're going to go out there and be able to freaking, YouTube whatever's happening and everything like that. It ain't going to be the case. You're going by a military base. They have every tool in the freaking planet ready.
And another thing we got to ask ourselves too, I mean, honestly, is how much do we respect the military? How much do we respect national security? I mean, if we put all our secrets on Front Street, whether you like it or not, it makes us vulnerable to other militaries. It just does. So, are you wanting to know all the secrets about everything, or is it just the aliens? Is that it? I think that's coming anyways. I don't think you're going to have to storm Area 51 before Wernher von Braun's predictions come true. They're either going to give us a fake alien invasion. I mean, look, they're setting it up with TV shows. If you want to get real conspiratorial, right? They're setting it up with TV shows left and right. Left and right. Science fiction is all over television now. Apple TV is about to launch a new series in the fall from Battlestar Galactica. There's another one coming out on Netflix. I believe it's called Another Life. It's all about fighting aliens that are invading us. I don't think we really understand the level of psyops that are going on. We think we got all these people that they understand the concept of a psyop, right? But do they understand the truth of it? And that was my point earlier. We understand the concept of the ego and our vibes or whatever that we call it in the spiritual community. But do we really know the truth of what these things actually are? And I think it gets dangerous when you get down to things like this, where you really put your heart out there and you want to know the truth of something so bad that you're willing to get 1 million people behind you and say, oh, wow, man, it was just a joke. Please don't go down there and do it. It's too late. A certain percentage of those folks are already going to go down there until somebody else starts a Facebook group and says, this is a dumb idea, Facebook group. And another 1 million people join that one.
It should.
You know, I mean, haven't you figured out that individuals are fantastic, but when we do things as a group, we really show our ignorance. And I don't know why. Why that is. We need to figure that out first.
I think it was George Carlin who said it best when he said, never underestimate the power of stupidity in large numbers.
Right? I mean, I could go out into that crowd of people and talk to them individually, and they're probably very smart. They probably have, most of them probably have a good sense of things. But when we get together as a group, we do crazy and dumb things. Like, who came up with the running of the bulls? They had to know that was going to knock people out. People were going to die from it. I don't know. And that's why I like to focus on consciousness exploration, understanding what the occult and symbolism and all this stuff really is, because I think that's at the very tops of all this stuff. And I know we were talking to Paul earlier, and I asked him about, he brought up something, and I was going to wait. Actually, this is perfect, because I'm going to wait till the last part of the show to talk to you about this idea that once you really understand consciousness, that you understand that we're all made up of the same thing, that we truly are like gods or whatever, right? And good and evil are just things that we do. Really don't have any consequence. I don't know about all that. He didn't really answer that. And that kind of bothers me. I'm not putting it on Paul, and I'm not going to put it on one person, but I think we need to address these things before we start going around and telling everybody based on our out-of-body experiences that we're gods, right? And I'm glad that Paul was like, look, I don't know. I'm just telling you what's happened to me. But these are just concepts. And for the listener that messaged me that stuff, I'm not picking on you, buddy, at all. I get your heart, brother. I do. I know you want to know the truth, and I know you want the government to respect you again, and you want the government to listen to you and to realize why it was created that way in the first place. But the times that we live in now, the reality that we're in now, is something totally different than that concept. I'm not saying we can't get it back, but we're going to have to be a little bit more smarter, more intelligent. We're going to have to do this a little bit better. And look what happened to Alex Jones. They put him on Front Street, right? Anyways,
real quick.
I'm really going to piss some people off. I start bad-mouthing Alex Jones. I love that guy too. But we can learn a lesson from what happened to him. We'll be right back. Hey, the Fringe FM chat is over on Discord, or actually, if you go to thefringe.fm/chat, you can get into that room there at lightingthevoid.com. I put it in the sidebar. I embedded the chat thing there so you can see it. Just click on it, go to the chat. Come hang out with us. It's open 24/7. Be right back.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now, this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves strip bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand 3 truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25 years shelf life. Normally $137. Now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247. Now only $147 shipped in 1 business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Greetings, galactic community. This is Suzanne Ross, host of Sci-Spy Radio, every Wednesday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific. Join me for this brand new show featuring a revolutionary new genre, Sci-Spy, merging science and spirituality to give us answers to the greatest mysteries of creation. Together, scientific discovery and spiritual revelation reveal the truth about who we are, where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going. Tune in to Sci-Spy Radio every Wednesday from 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific and discover the truth for yourself at thefringe.fm.
You know, food was different 60 years ago. It was minimally processed, free of pesticides. It was nourishing and healthful for your body. Today, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, and heavy processing have depleted the nutrition of our food supply, which takes a toll on our health and energy. It's harder than ever to get the right nutrition. That's what Life Change Tea is meant to counteract. Our specially blended, powerful herbal formulas can give you more energy without caffeine. It's a mild cleanse, a mild daily detox. A good detox can help revive and bring back the energy of your youth. GetTheTea.com is the website. It'll cleanse you from the inside out with this herbal proprietary formula. Go to GetTheTea.com. There's no fillers, no GMOs. It's organic. Not available in stores. You must go to their website, getthetea.com. And their supplements are a great way to maintain your health. Read the testimonials on the website. Go to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com.
My man Chrono's bringing us back. If you like some of the music, if you're into all that spacey, synthy stuff like me, then you can go to chronosofficial.com. That guy's really cool. He's a really cool cat. And he's currently working on a Lighting the Void project. I don't know when it's going to be done, but there will be like a new intro to this, I guess, the show. And there's nobody I trust better than Chronox to get it done. And the guy is so humble. I mean, I don't even think he knows how good he is. He's just like, oh, thank you so much for, he's from Belgium, right? So he's like, thank you so much for promoting my music and this and that. And I'm thinking, dude, you have no idea how good you are. And then I see that too. I was talking to listeners with you earlier, Dan, that some people, I really think they don't have any idea how talented they are, whether it's writing or whatever. And I know I sound kind of dramatic when I say those type of things that I think everybody should create. But, I mean, we're in the age of the storyteller. And if you can do that through art, writing, or whatever, I think you should do it. And I will promote you till the cows come home. But anyways, yeah, so what were we talking about? The Area 51 thing? Is that what we were talking about? I think we've made our point about that, right?
I think we made our point with that.
I just don't want anybody to get hurt. That's the last thing.
Right.
I don't want this community to get embarrassed, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. I mean, we're just now starting to be taken seriously by some of the mainstream media, and you guys do what you want to do, right? You're free to do what you want to do. Just know reality. That's all I got to say, because you got to take that into consideration. But here's what I wanted to talk to you about, Dan. So people that have major spiritual experiences like Paul and other folks that have come on the show, they talk about this, even Richard Allen Miller. They talk about how we're just a drop in the ocean of consciousness, right? Mm-hmm. And you've heard this from magicians too, even black magicians. They'll say things like, there's no part of me that's not part of the gods. A metaphor for saying that we're all just a part of this bigger consciousness stream. Right. Well, that brings up a lot of questions, right? It brings up a lot of questions about hierarchies. Is there such a thing? Is there such a thing as good and evil? Stuff like that. And I think the one that gets my attention the most is there such a thing as good and evil? Not because I like to focus on evil things, but because they're real. And, okay, let's get real honest. Let's put all confirmation bias aside, and let's just say that evil is a concept that when people do something that we consider so horrid or bad that we agree that's not good. I mean, we have to define things by words. But I'll give you an example. And this was sent to me by a listener from Russia, right? There was this vampire sex cult leader back in 2000, and I think it was 17. Yeah, that's right. It's 2017. And this is pretty grim, okay? But he allegedly hit up this chick on Tinder. And not allegedly, he really did it. And her name was Sydney Loof. She was just looking for a date. And she found this guy. And then later on, they found this woman's body cut into 14 different pieces, stuffed into garbage bags, southwest of Omaha back in December of 2017. That is incredibly insane and grotesque. Now, I didn't look too deep into the trial. I'm assuming that hopefully they got the death penalty and they took care of it, but that is insane, right? And they connected this to a vampire-like sex cult, people that like to mutilate bodies and eat blood and stuff, right? Drink blood. Now, if we're all a drop, and I'm not trying to focus on bad and insane things. There's plenty of shows that do that. What I'm trying to do is understand this concept of we're all a drop in this river or ocean of consciousness, and that means I'm connected to somebody that does something like that. And I would like to think, and maybe it's just bias, but I'd like to think that my consciousness is not connected to that at all. You understand what I'm saying, Dan? Like, to me, that feels evil. What we call evil.
Right.
What is that? If it's not, if evil doesn't exist and we're all just God in smaller forms, what's that? Why does that even happen? And I'm taking your silence by saying that we don't know a lot of what we think we know. For as many damn spiritual gurus as there are out there, all we know is our experience. And we're learning little bitty things, but when it comes to those big questions like that, I don't think anybody can know unless you have a belief.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you wind up, you can read until you're blue in the face. You can read until the cows come home. You're not going to know for sure, unless you have the experience. And then come back and live to tell about it.
The irony here is it's incredibly easy for somebody that has a belief, a spiritual belief, they'll tell you. As dumb as the devil and hell and Satan sounds, it's incredibly easy for those people to say, well, that's pretty explainable. That's Satan incarnate. That's the devil. That's evil. Duh.
That's the easy way of saying it, right? That's the easy way of saying it. I mean, there's writings in the readings, in the Casey readings, where he says that God pretty much encompasses everything. Good and evil. There's so much good in the worst of us, and there's so much evil in the best of us. So it behooves none of us to judge any of us.
Yeah, and there's a lot of extreme cases out there, right? If we wanted to go down the list, we could. But I get, here's my experience with it. When people talk about these types of things, when I learn that they're really happening, if you take someone that just recently passed away, like Tracy Twyman, right? And she was looking into these things, people that do horrid things to children, trying to put a stop to it. When you look into the stuff I think she was a warrior. Anybody that goes out, whether it's really happening or not, if she believed in her heart that there were children and other people out there suffering that needed our help because they couldn't defend themselves and they needed our help and she was out doing it, then she's a warrior, in my opinion. But if those types of things exist, then I'm not sure that we're all part of this consciousness thing. It makes me wonder if some people were born on this earth that just have no damn soul. Almost like animals. And I'm not saying animals don't have a soul, but if, you know what I mean? I do. Something with a brain, something that just doesn't have anything inside of it, but materialistic needs.
Right. Brings me back to that story I was telling you about when I went into the void. We were talking about that earlier. I was talking with Dawn earlier about that. And while I was overdosed, on alcohol, and I was in the void, my body was still reacting and still talking and still being whatever it was down there. And I have absolutely no recollection of it, all the way to the point where I heard the screaming, and then it pulled back down into my body. But in the meanwhile, during that time, who the hell was in my body? What the hell was in my body? What was operating and screaming and yelling and communicating with everybody if I was not in my body? How does that split occur? Was it a walk-in? What the hell was it? And why was it crying? Because I needed to pee.
That's a trippy thought.
God, I mean, really.
Yeah, because when people talk about walk-ins, I like to think I'm in control of it all. Yeah, that's not real. It's always me.
Well, that's why they call it spirits, but, who knows?
The Duffer Brothers that wrote Stranger Things, right? I was watching season 2, and this girl that called in when Jeff was on, she said, or somebody else might have done, I think it was her, that we do things through art because we don't really know how to explain them. I think they do that when they create movies and stuff sometimes too, or it could be a psyop. Mm-hmm. Either way, I don't know. But in season 2, the kid Mike, he gets possessed. He gets possessed by this thing, right? It's okay if you didn't watch it. There's a ton of movies like that. They get possessed by a thing, and his mother's asking him, "What's my name? When was your birthday?" and all this stuff, and you can't imagine that person's not there, right? Like their body's there, they're awake, they're talking, they're doing things, they're communicating, hell, they're even smiling, but they're not there. I would like to think that's not real, but I'm starting to think that it is, especially.
Dude, my mother's going through my mother's going through dementia, and she goes through these periods. She doesn't know my dad. She doesn't know me. And she's like, but she's there. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, who are you? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
I'm like, what the hell am I dealing with here? I'm like, all right. And 10 minutes later, she comes back.
She's got dementia or Alzheimer's? It's dementia?
It's a lead-in to Alzheimer's. But yeah, it's dementia.
Well, that gives me, as weird as it sounds, that gives me good feelings too about the soul, to know that it exists, right? Because I've heard a lot of stories about people that have had Alzheimer's, and I've even witnessed it once for myself. Like I had a friend named Junior who had a grandmother who had Alzheimer's, and she was just angry all the time, and didn't really know what was going on, just frustrated. I mean, you'd show up to her house and say, hey, Miss So-and-so, oh, damn it, there's another one. Shit. She'd just get mad, right? Like, was living in this world where she's just frustrated, always that way. Well, the day before she passed away, she was nice to everybody. She even knew everybody's name. She's like, hey, you guys going to come eat dinner? I got this corn out of the garden, blah, blah. No one's seen her like that in years.
She came back.
And she passed away the next day. There's no other way to explain that. I guess you could medically explain. I don't think so. She came back to say bye to everybody, I think. Her soul did. Like you're saying, right?
Yeah. I can't define it. I can't put labels on it. I can only tell you what I'm experiencing.
I think there's a filter there though, for sure. Like you were mentioning, because if the soul really wanted to say bye, wouldn't it come down and say, bye? Like literally, hey, I'm leaving. But I don't think it's not human at all. I think it just filters through and it does what it does. In other words,
I don't know. You might want to. Have you ever read that book by Raymond Moody?
Raymond, I hadn't read his book. I'd like to talk to that guy though.
You should. Well, you should.
I don't think he stays up
both
late.
Counts. I doubt it.
But you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't the soul come down and just say bye? Not saying that it doesn't happen, but why wouldn't it do that?
I don't know. Why don't you ask it?
I can't.
Yes, you can.
How?
Why can't you?
Why can't I fly,
In the same fashion. Why can't you fly?
Oh God, here we go.
Well,
have you ever seen that movie, The Boy Who Thought He Could Fly? That's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't refer to movies.
You've seen it though, right?
No.
He would sit in the top of the barn and hold his arms out. I remember watching that when I was a kid.
Oh, that was What's Eating Gilbert Grape, wasn't it?
No, this movie was really called The Boy Who Could Fly, I think.
Oh.
And nobody believed in it, but he believed in it so much that he did fly.
I don't know. Did you see Powder?
Yeah.
Did anybody see Powder? That was a good movie. That was a good movie.
It's been a long time since I've seen that flick. I might watch it again.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
Hey, we're running out of time. I do want to say thank you all for going over to Art Funkhauser's website and filling out that survey. He really does appreciate it. And as much of an introvert as he is, it was really hard for me. I have a hard time with introverts because I don't, as much as I blab, I hate talking that much. I really do. But we had a conversation afterwards, and he's willing to come back and talk a little bit more about his studies. Fascinating fellow. I've never got to talk to a Quaker, though, like a real Quaker, and look into the beliefs of it. And earlier I mentioned Mitch Horowitz, and he wrote an article on Medium about something about manifesting things. And here's what's funny about it. If we do have an underlying faith or belief, like it doesn't matter if it's Christianity, it doesn't matter if it's Hindu, even if you're a magician, if you do have some type of underlying faith or belief, your manifestations and the power of what you can do ends up being more successful, and not just on a small rate, on a large rate. Now, Mitch had brought that up, but I'm just saying that too, based on my own experience, but he brought it up and kind of validated that for some reason, when we do have beliefs and faith, let's say angels and gods and devils or whatever you want to believe in, then things work better. So we're kind of living in this big ironic thing that makes absolutely no sense. And Dan, you teach me that a lot of times, because I think right when you're going to tell me that you know something, you're like, no, I don't know about that. You got a lot more questions. I got so many more questions, a lot of more shows to do.
I'd rather be honest about it because I'm as lazy as you are.
Yeah, right?
It's easier to tell the truth.
You guys have no idea what I've gotten advice from show hosts and people. They're like, man, you need to become an authority in something, right? You need to become this, fake it till you make it, become an authority, purchase Spreaker followers and listeners and Twitter. No, I'm not doing all that. I can't, I'm too lazy to cover all that up and pretend that all this stuff is happening.
Me too.
And if I don't become successful because of that, then fine.
But I'll tell you what, if you want to have a belief and you want to manifest and stuff like that, it pays to be completely fanatical about it. When I mean fanatical, I mean you can't fanatical. There's just like you have to be dead set on whatever it is that you want to accomplish. And it's just like, it's just like practicing something. If you want to practice something, you don't stop halfway. What are you stopping halfway for? Have you seen the results that you needed? Go all the way. Go all the way.
Yeah. And thank you, Dennis, for dropping that in the chat. So Dennis did drop something. about Mitch, Manifest Your Power by Mitch Horowitz. It's a video in there, which is another reason why I like to use the Discord, because when the show's off, that thing's still on. So sometimes I'll check it at like 4 or 5 in the morning and there's people chatting in there. So it's a place where we can all hang out and we can all communicate. We can all share our thoughts without having to worry about getting our content removed. Unless you piss off those people that are in there, then you might get removed, which is kind of cool. It is actually governed and run for the people, by the people, the Fringe FM chat. And it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot better. And for those Spreaker followers that did come over here and listen on the Fringe FM, hey, look, thank you. I know that was a pain in the butt, but it's kind of easier, honestly. But either way, I appreciate you doing that. I do. You're making things easier on me, and easier on my stress level. And I think I don't really have anything else to talk about other than tomorrow night we're going to have Robert Wagner on, and we're going to be discussing lucid dreaming, which is, God, that's such a cool subject. I mean, I don't know how long he's going to stay on, but that's what we're going to talk about and really get into that. There's nothing more cool than lucid dreaming, or the idea that you could live out whatever fantasy you want to live out. Preston Dennett talks about that a lot too.
All in 2 seconds.
All in 2 seconds. But it lasted hours on up here
on the other side.
Or was it 2 seconds up here? No, it was 2 seconds in the real world and like 2 hours
2
in the dream
seconds in
world.
the real world. Yep.
That's a nutty thing too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to sum it all up, I want to thank Paul for coming on the broadcast tonight. If you guys want to rush out to Area 51, do it. I've said my piece. I love your heart. I just want you to use your brain a little bit more. And for the guy that said it was just a joke, well, are you still laughing? You know, like, is it funny to you now that you got all these people behind you? And thank you, Dan, for coming on too. I'll be poking you again, probably hoping you come back on. Nobody wants to hear me rant for an hour and a half, brother. I don't care who they are.
Oh, they do.
And those are special people. And
I read. They do.
But don't copy this without written permission. Somebody tried that on YouTube and they had to take it down. And don't forget the show's produced by me and the Fringe FM, also Pacho and Don. And I want to give a shout out to Dennis as well as Eric Markham and our program director, Jeremy Scott. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks for coming out.
And Patrick.
Pacho, that's him. Patrick.
Oh, that's Patrick.
Yep. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.